this AvTims video, we're going to build the Bonanza A36. Download and print the plans from AvTims.com. Tape up your plans, heat up your glue guns, we're going to get building. We're going to build a separate video for the power pods, haven't done that yet, but you can go to flighttest.com. We use their power pod. They have a fantastic design, and you should buy as many things as you can from them. Also watch their tips and tricks videos. They show you how to make some amazing cuts and do really neat things with foam. We learned all of our techniques there. Fantastic company. Okay, so the Bonanza probably isn't your first airplane, so we're going to assume that you know how to cut out your plane, how to score the blue lines and poke holes with the barbecue skewers. So here's a new technique that we developed on the Bonanza. We call it pockets. You're going to halfway cut through the foam, lift the pattern off, then you need to carefully slice all the way down to the bottom sheet of paper. It's easier if you remove the top piece of paper and then pick the foam out, leaving a pocket where we can glue in parts at another time. It doesn't have to be fancy. It can get a little ugly, and you can even poke holes by accident through the other side. You can fix them later with a little tape. Don't worry about it. I hate picking this part out. On the two Bonanzas we built so far, each time is a pain in the neck. When cutting out parts like this, you may want to leave the little extra piece of foam there as support until you're ready to glue it together. The servo tray is pretty straightforward. Cut that out and set that off to the side. The nose wheel is half foam, half plywood. We're going to come back to the plywood later, so you can cut out the foam now and set it aside. The windshield and nose cowling, it's a little bit of a tricky part, so we'll walk through this together. First, we're going to make a paper flap. Make a 50% cut, bend to break, and peel off the foam, leaving the paper. Next, make the 50% cuts on the sides and strip off the little piece of foam. If you haven't already, do the 50% cut in the middle, bend to break. Remove the paper from the inside of the windshield. If the paper tears and won't come off, use a 50% water and rubbing alcohol mixture to remove the paper. Now we can curve the windshield. Use the edge of a table, rub the foam back and forth till you get the curve you're looking for. The wing root, although it looks complex, is a pretty simple, straightforward part. Just follow the plans, do the 50% cuts, pick off the pieces of foam, and it should come out just fine. About now you should have quite a nice pile of parts. Make sure to save the fuselage sides so you can mark the windows. Okay, let's come back to that nose wheel. Our original design was 100% foam and had a washer hot glued to the top and the bottom. We've reworked this design several times. We used a piece of plywood on the top and bottom. It gives it a lot more strength. Drill or make a little hole right in the middle of both pieces of plywood. Bend, fold, and glue the foam. Dry fit this a few times. You want to line up the back edge, then go ahead and hot glue the wood to the foam. You can either use a coat hanger. I found though that if I go to the hardware store and I buy a piece of stainless steel, it's a lot stiffer and holds up a lot better. Bend a 90-degree angle into the top of the wire and then drop it into the part. I found that a tiny little washer and some hot glue secured to the wire on the bottom side of this part holds the nose wheel in perfect position. Now you can make your second 90-degree bend, slide on your nose wheel, use a little hot glue as a stopper, and you're ready to go. We're going to go back to the old foam part for a little bit here because I don't have any pictures of the wooden part. Make sure to dry fit these parts first. Oh, here's a cool technique. Use your hot glue gun, just put some glue on the edge of the foam, then use the tip of the glue gun as a hot knife. It makes a nice seal and makes your part last a lot longer. Okay, after you're happy with your dry fit, take your hot glue gun, lay a bead in the pocket, drop your part in, and hold it till it's dry. We're going to do the same thing for the engine mount. Fold and dry fit that, and then glue it in as well. Do one half the fuselage, then lay the other half on top, and glue that in. It's starting to look like a nice solid nose. Make sure your fuselage is straight before you glue the top down. Any twist or curve in the fuselage is going to be hard to correct after this point. I like to turn it upside down and work on a flat surface. Getting ready to glue in the windshield and nose cowling, you'll notice there's a piece of foam that needs to be trimmed away. Then I use my X-Acto knife to carve out that foam. Make sure not to cut the paper flap, and you may have to take several pieces off at a time. Just keep working at it until it fits nicely. When you're ready, glue the sides first, then apply a liberal amount of hot glue and curve the flap underneath. I forgot to mention you might need to trim that paper flap a little bit on the left and the right. I also use a piece of Scotch tape to hold the very back of that flap down. One time I pulled the power pot out and ripped it out. Moment we've been waiting for. Go ahead and slide that power pot in and see how it looks. Use your X-Acto knife to prick little holes in the paper. It makes it a little easier to poke with the barbecue skewer in. As you're pushing in the barbecue skewer, make sure to twist it back and forth to get it nice and deep in there. Then use your snips to cut it off. Looks good. When you're happy, take the power pod back out, remove the skewers, fill the holes with hot glue, twist them as you push them in, get them as deep as you can. Now, with a little luck, your back hole for your power pod will line up perfectly. Mine was a little bit wide. I used a little bit of poster board, cut it out in an oval, poke a hole in it. I do this for two reasons. One, it makes the hole a little bit more secure when you slide the skewer in and out, and it holds up a little bit better, I found. You should also use the same method to secure your rubber band posts for your wing. So now we're going to go ahead and put the wing root in. Curve this part lightly on the edge of a table, then dry fit it in. When you're ready, lift the paper on the edge, put some hot glue in there, and push it on down. Now you're ready to slide in your barbecue skewers for your wing mounts. Make sure to glue them in pretty securely. I didn't do it here, but you can also use poster board to secure these in. The empennage, fancy word for tail. There's just something about the tail that makes an airplane an airplane. Start with the horizontal stabilizer, slide it in there. Make sure that the elevator can move freely up and down. I like flying this model with a good amount of throw in those control surfaces. You can adjust that as necessary with your transmitter. Bring in your vertical stabilizer and rudder from the back. Separate the fuselage halves and put a little glue in the back, then work your way forward. Make sure you're happy with the alignment of the control surfaces before you glue them on. Now we're going to assemble the hatch assembly. These are simple A-style folds hot glued on the left and right. Then you curve both ends up and hot glue them as well. With a little luck again, your barbecue holes will line up. If not, just make them a little bit wider. We'll fix that in a bit. The top of the hatch is made out of poster board. Dry fit this a couple times, then go ahead and hot glue one end, stretch it around, and hot glue the other end. I like to make a little tab that makes it easier to pull the hatch out. I fold a piece of Scotch tape in half, put a dab of hot glue on it, and leave it hang out the top a little bit. It makes it easier to pull the hatch out. Next, we're going to build the wing assemblies. We're going to remove the inside piece of paper from the wing. If you haven't used the 50% alcohol and water method before, you just mix it together, soak it up with a napkin or paper towel, wet out the paper, and it should peel right off for you. Now you're ready to glue the spar to the bottom half of the wing. Use a good bead of hot glue and then hold it down until it cools. To make that nice curved upper camber of the wing, rub it on the edge of a table a couple times until you're happy with the look. Now lay the bottom of the wing on a flat surface and slowly press the top half of the wing to the bottom half. You might want to use a pencil to mark the trailing edge of the wing. You don't want to put glue here. When you're ready, open the wing back up. Lay in a good bead of glue on the spar and the trailing edge of the bottom half of the wing. Go ahead and curve the top half to the bottom half and hold it till it's cool. That's a nice looking airfoil for Dollar Tree foam board. Make sure to dry fit this part a couple times before you go to glue it. Start by gluing the bottom tab, then curve it around to the top and glue the top. I like to trim out a little bit of the foam on either side of the aileron. It makes them move easier. Okay, put a piece of tape, sticky side up, on the table and lay your 1/2 wing in the middle of the tape. Then lay the other half wing and wrap the tape up inside of the wing. Before joining the spars, make sure to put a little dihedral in the wing. A good technique here would be to leave 1/2 of the wing flat on the table and prop the other half up with a roll of tape. Measure, cut, and glue a popsicle stick on the front and back of the spar. Also put a popsicle stick closer to the leading edge of the wing. This helps hold the wing in the proper position when rubber banded to the fuselage. Now we're going to put some gap seals on. Trim 1/4-inch strips from extra scrap foam that you have. Start in the back, work your way to the front, and trim it off with a pair of scissors. For the landing gear, you can either use a coat hanger or you can get stronger wire from the hardware store. Start off by measuring the width of your tire and a little bit of wire sticking out for your stopper. Bend it 90 degrees. Make sure your tire spins freely. Now measure up about 1.5 to 2 inches. Bend it 90 degrees. Just eyeball measure about another 1.5 inches down on the wire. And now bend another 90 degrees straight up. And snip that off about 1.5 inches in. I usually put this cute little strut assembly on with foam. However, I end up tearing it off later, so you can skip this part if you wish. A bead of hot glue makes a great wheel stopper. This seems too simple, but just go ahead and lay a bead of glue around the wire and then cover it up with a piece of poster board, hot glued down. Works perfect. A word about rubber bands: always pre-stretch them first, or else they might break. Recently I had a rubber band break. Well, the Bonanza, it entered the forest. One last option is to cover the wingtips with poster board. I just glue a piece on there and trim it off with scissors. Works great, lasts a long time. Quick tip: if you don't want to go looking through the weeds for your hatch, use a little rubber band to hold it on. Now we're going to finish up the airplane with some electronics, rig the nose wheel, and you'll be all set. It's going to take a little trial and error. You want to start with a piece of piano wire, bend a loop in the end, and then 45 degrees. Loop the piano wire around your nose wheel wire. Use your thumb as a guide and move the wire back and forth to steer your nose wheel. When you're happy with the movement, you need to secure the wire to the side with a guide. Now take a piece of poster board, put 2 dots of hot glue on it, put it over top of the wire. It makes a great guide. Next is a servo tray. Use a pencil, mark your servo locations, cut out the holes, dry fit your servos. When you're happy, take your whole assembly and hot glue them in. Mount your aileron servos on the bottom side of the wing. Mark their locations with a pencil and cut out the foam. You can use a barbecue skewer or a piece of piano wire. You want to guide the servo lead up through the center of the wing into the root. Finish hooking up your aileron with a control horn and glue her in. Your power pod may be a little snug in there with the nose gear assembly, but it should be just enough room to fit. Attach servo extension leads to your receiver. I like to mark them left and right. A little Velcro always holds your receiver in place. You should have enough wire to be able to attach your battery from the canopy hatch area. Feed your servo extensions through the hole in the bottom of the wing root. This way you can take your wing on and off for transportation. Please remember to use more than 2 rubber bands. Remember, the center of gravity is very important. The forward barbecue skewer for the canopy hatch is your center of gravity. We'll have a coloring guide in another video. Well, that wraps it up for our Bonanza build video. Have fun!
Visit AvTims website for more videos and click like on Facebook.